Now, it's always an interesting one. Let's get to some of this compliance again as we're moving into compliance and the old employee handbook. Do the old yes, the no, the maybe. Um, Employee handbook, is it now a compliance necessity?
Look, in the day and age that we live in, yes. The amount of times I hear from business owner, "Oh, it's getting harder and harder, so many rules, so much structure, regulations," and that's correct. Unfortunately, it is what it is, and this is where we're at. So those items that I spoke about at the start, the drug and alcohol policy, code of conduct, all those type of things, if you wrap it up in a neat handbook, it's one consent document. It's no longer a nice to have. There's so much change in the employment space from a legislation. You need to be consistent, up to date to make sure that you reduce any ambiguity. I can't say that word. And it covers a range of compliance from policy to process to expectations to guidelines in a nice, neat consent document.
Okay. Okay. So what are some of the, because we just mentioned it then, and you're right, around Christmas time, there's always drinking and nowadays a lot of drugs. So
Yes.
what are sort of the critical policies that should be included in a handbook?
Yeah, look, we have a standard range that we put into essentially most handbooks, no matter what type of organization, and then you amend it to your environment and your culture. So the standard things are the code of conduct, equal opportunity, bullying, harassment, discrimination, performance management, disciplinary, leave, communication, social media. That's another one that should be rolled out at Christmas time. We all take the happy snaps and the videos and everything. Um, Social media, IT, security, health and safety, psychosocial, health and well-being. That's a range of the type of things. Right to disconnect that's now in place for everyone. Grievance policy, complaints. All this, as you can hear in the titles, support your business day to day, but also support when it comes to the social side of things as well. So um, they're just the common ones. For example, if I was running an electrical business, I would have a vehicle policy in there. I would have a license management and things like that. So, if I was in a physical office, it would be about security and smoke alarms and those type of things. From that, generalize what covers everyone. Personally, I wouldn't have the likes of a credit card policy, even though we might have a credit card at now, actually, it's not applicable for majority of the employees. That's a standalone policy. So we really curate it to make sure it covers the whole business. And if there's certain things, you might have a snapshot in the handbook and then an individual policy. But we help determine that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a boring document. It's not sexy. It's compliance. Who loves it?
Right.
But it's a necessity as an employer.
Spot on. And look, if anyone's online that's got an employee handbook that wants to just jot it down in some of the in the comments even just to share with us what you've got and if you've got one and what's in yours. I'd love to hear a little bit about, not that I'm looking at that right now, but love to hear about what you guys have got because I think you're right. We're getting more and more into this stage where things like an employee handbook is going to be so important as we move into 2026. And that's why we're doing this now to prepare all of you guys for the new calendar year ahead. I suppose the next question I've got is how often should it be updated and reviewed?
Yeah. Look, I used to say kind of every couple of years. Now, our advice is minimum annually or when legislation changes happen. In this space, as I mentioned previously, there's been so many changes over recent years, even in the last 12 months. So, yeah, annually is a good practice. Consider it a living document that you always need to update it. And when you do update it, communicate it with the team. Now, I'm not saying hold a big meeting that's going to waste an hour of everyone's time times 50 staff members, but communicate it via email or through your HRIS because just because you've got an existing one doesn't mean it's going to protect you if it's out of date.
Jenna, from a let's call it a employee resources point of view, and let's say, for example, because we've got Google and we've got MS
Mm.
nowadays, and we've got shared files that are set, and all employees have got access to those particular files and those documents. if we're updating our documents and they're in that shared file folder, is it still our responsibility as employers to tell the employees that they've been updated, or is that something that we just expect that they would be okay
Yeah.
to go there and it'd be updated?
Good question. No, you need to communicate it. And because if something happens and you end up in an investigation or a claim through Fair Work or Work Cover, if it all comes down to proof, if you don't have proof that you have communicated, it's not up to the employee to, oh, let's have a monthly check to see if the handbook's been up to date. Because let's be honest, I just want to make sure that our team have signed it, whether they read it or not. Yes, that is what we educate and try to get to, but we know what humans are like. They're like, here's boring policies. I'm just tick, 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 signing it off.
Yeah.
But that's the important part. But that's also why when you are designing your handbook, that the copy isn't lengthy, dry, and boring. Yes, there are some aspects, but make it engaging. Make sure that it's written to your audience. And that's why we see so many, oh, I borrowed it from my friend's business, Dr. Google on our ChatGPT. But if it's not written in your language and for your industry and your culture, that's where things are going to come undone.
Okay, that's a good point. And you raised it before with regards to the word investigation. Now, having been through an investigation with team members, and I know I reached out to you at the time as well, and we spoke about this. How does a well-written handbook protect the business in times of disputes and investigations?
Yeah. A lot of the time when those situations happen, the investigator will always ask, show me, say if it was an accusation of bullying, show me your bullying policy. Show me your code of conduct. Show me your equal opportunity, or show me your HR policy, everything that's connected. If you don't have that in place, you've got nothing to fall back on.
Okay.
And like we always say, it's not always about the crime. So, for example, in this case, the bullying, whether it did or didn't happen, that's important. We've got to get to the bottom of it. But from an employer's perspective, you're going to be held more accountable if you don't have this structure and documentation in place.
Yep.
So you can't just say, oh, but everyone knows you can't bully and everyone knows what it is. But if it's not written in black and white and communicated, it's irrelevant.
Agree. And I think that, again, for everybody, whether you've been through something similar to, and let's use sort of bullying as a classic example, whether it's happening in the school ground across the road or whether it's happening in the office place, it tends to happen.
Yeah.
Things can be misinterpreted, certainly leading into things like Christmas parties, body language can be misinterpreted. And
Yeah.
suddenly it ends up being a fair work issue that,
Yeah.
and that was something that I know I had to experience and work through with you to make sure we ticked all those boxes and went through that investigation. So important, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Whether as an employer, whether you like it or not, or you think it's a waste of time and I just need all this, what's the point of all this documentation? There is a point and there's a reason why it's recommended.
Yeah. Protection at the end of the day,
Yeah.
protecting the company, the director, all of those things coming